Healing anxious attachment. It is what we are all here for, and we're all here to do. And yes, it is an incredible life-changing journey, but my God, it is tough. It is hard. You may be someone who is just beginning on your journey, might be feeling a little overwhelmed by this journey and what it takes and what it means to heal attachment wounds and become more secure. You might be well under your way and you've already tripped over a few obstacles here and there, and you've seen progress, you've seen results, and you're still on that journey. And maybe you're hitting a few walls and a few obstacles, and everything is okay. Because this is a thing about healing journeys is that they're not linear. They're ups and downs and ins and outs, and it feels like an absolute emotional roller coaster, as if we've been put in a washing machine and spat back out. That's what it actually feels like to go on a healing journey. And a lot of us have these misconceptions and myths about what it actually means to heal anxious attachment and move towards secure attachment. It moves us towards being more at ease and confident and healthier in our relationships, but it also does require confronting some uncomfortable truths along the way. So I just wanted to be real with you guys in today's episode of what it actually takes and what are some of the things that no one told me about healing anxious attachment, some of the things that I have to relate to my own clients when they come into my programs. But when you have a community, a therapist, a coach walking on the path with you, it can make the journey so much more less lonely and so much more enjoyable as you start to enjoy the process and the journey itself. And that's why I'm just going to unapologetically plug in here before we even get started with this episode that I am hosting a free 7-day challenge called Secure Girl Summer. It is coming up to June. If you're listening to this in real time, summer is here. So let's create that energy for ourselves. Let's embody what it means to be a secure woman. So we can go into this summer feeling so empowered, so elevated, so calm, so confident in our being that we are just going to attract those relationships, those partners, those changes in your current relationship that you're wanting to see happen because you're shifting your own energy. This is a free, completely free challenge. No email sign up required. It's going to be hosted in my broadcast channel on my Instagram. So if you're already following me over there, just go ahead and join. Or the link to my Instagram is in the show notes. It is at the.relationship.rehab. Join us. We start on June the 2nd. It's going to be a vibe. I am so excited to lead us all through this movement, this new shift in energy. Woo! So I will see you there. Now let's get back to the episode where we are going to unpack 5 hard truths about healing anxious attachment that will help you set realistic expectations and stay committed to your growth. Let's go. Welcome to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. I'm Sammy, a certified breakup and relationship coach, attachment specialist, former love addict, and spiritual junkie. This podcast is for you, the hopeless romantic who loves to love, and a safe space for us to explore and heal our attachment trauma, broken hearts, and love addictions. Together, we are on a mission to become the love of our own lives so we can have successful, healthy, secure relationships with others. So if you're ready to create a life and love beyond your wildest desires, you're in the right place. Your journey towards becoming more secure in love and life starts now. Hello, my beautiful, secure women and men here. Welcome back to the Relationship Rehab Podcast. I am Samantha, your host, attachment trauma specialist, relationship coach, here to give you some advice, some tips, some hard truths about what it means to heal anxious attachment and embody that secure woman or man that you are within. Now, before we start with this episode, I just wanted to address something that is happening in real time. And that is that I posted something super vulnerable on my Instagram last week about losing a baby. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to my audience, to my people for really seeing me, for showering with me with so much love and support and encouragement. I was so anxious to share this. It's been 2 years now since I went through that, and it is one of the most traumatic experiences that I have ever gone through. And I was going back and forth as to whether to share this experience, whether to keep it private, because it is a very sacred experience that I've been through. But I decided that I wanted to share this for multiple reasons. One of them being that everybody goes through stuff in their lives. I am no exception. And I also just wanted to share the journey itself of being able to process and move through trauma. And it was very interesting to observe how I was reacting to the situation and how I was able to move through it. And I wanted to share that. And I guess this is the bread and butter of this episode as well, that any type of journey where we are healing some sort of trauma, whether it is shock trauma, like something that I went through, where you're going through a loss, a grief, an accident, or if it's developmental trauma, which is attachment trauma. And these are journeys that we undertake to be able to get ourselves to a space where we feel better, we feel more at peace, we feel more fulfilled in our lives, to be in the world, that we're not a victim to crippling anxiety and depression and triggers that are triggering us constantly. And one of the things that I really leaned into in this journey, and something that I decided to formally train in, which is somatic therapy, because trauma really does live in the body and the body keeps the score. And any type of shock trauma that we might go through in our lives. So, like I said, the loss of my baby that I went through, some people would be a lot more resilient than I was. And that's when I really understood that when these experiences happen in our lives, it's because a lot of the old stuff is starting to come up to the surface. My fear of abandonment started to come up. Old things, unconscious things started to come up in relation to my mother, in relation to myself, in relation to my relationship that I was in with my partner. Like it all came up. So I really had to take that time to unpack it all. I invested in counseling to support me during this time because it was a dark time. So I wanted to just share that message at the start of this episode, that whatever you're going through, and whatever you're experiencing in relation to your relationships, or maybe it's things coming up in other areas of your life as well, that when you really set a commitment to yourself to show up and do the work and to complete and be consistent in your habits, be consistent in your practices, that one day there will be light at the end of that tunnel. And I didn't believe that was possible. I was in that much of a dark space. But someone said this to me, and even though I didn't believe it at the time, I wanted to, and I just made the decision that I was going to believe it. And eventually, I did start to feel those glimmers, feel those lights, and did end up processing, moving it through. And now I can talk about it without breaking down into tears, which is amazing. So I guess I just wanted to thank you all so much for giving me the space to share something so personal, so vulnerable for me in my life. So I guess it goes back to that point of just because you have done the healing work. I'm speaking to those women, just like myself, we've been through a lot of healing work where we're healing our attachment style, self-sabotage behavior, healing our shadows, our wounds, etc. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're never going to hurt or feel pain or be triggered or struggle again. That is the beauty of life, that we do have to go into a state of pain, but it depends on whether we stay there. If we then transfer from pain into suffering, and it's the choice that we make in that moment, whether we succumb to whatever is happening in our lives, or whether we actually see this as something, somewhat of an opportunity where we can now see what lessons, what experiences this is going to bring us, and actually use it to be able to develop more inner mental strength, emotional resilience, and see it as that, as an experience. But I know it's easier said than done. When I was going through and moving through that trauma, I remember, because I was coaching, I was in my business and it was thriving. And I felt a little bit like an imposter. I felt like a fraud. I felt like I should be doing better. I shouldn't be breaking down into tears after a client call. And I was beating myself up and I completely missed the point. of what it means to be that secure person for yourself. And it took me a while to get there, but I did eventually reach where I was starting to give myself a lot more compassion, grace, understanding on this journey. And that is my invitation for you today as well, to be able to see yourself as a freaking human being, like we all are, having experiences and being able to quieten that inner critic, that ego that is trying to talk you down, that is trying to put you back in your comfort zone, because what is happening around you right now is not comfortable. If it's painful, and our ego, our brain, it wants us to stop. And I was really humbled in that moment to just lean into surrender, into softness, into acceptance of the present moment, that this doesn't mean anything about me as a human being, as an individual, as a coach, like all these different labels that we put on ourselves from the ego. This is just something that I am experiencing in my life. Doesn't mean anything about my worth, my capabilities. And when I was able to get myself to that space, completely detached from the emotional experience I was having, I was allowed to then go into a space of curiosity, to really explore my experience, to strengthen in my power, to develop that emotional resilience, to lean more into my feminine, to fall back on my faith and my self-trust. So these experiences, they're not given to us by God, by the universe, because I do believe they are given to us to strengthen us, not to break us down, but to break us open. I was completely cracked open. I have shed so many layers. I feel like an onion. And I have emerged as this brand new version of myself. I don't know if I would have gotten there without this experience. Of course, we all would rather God, the universe, send us something different. But sometimes we have to go through struggle, we have to go through pain in order to reach the other side, in order to really build up that strength that we need in order to progress to that next level, in order for us to reach our potential and get what we really desire and want in our lives. We need to be that person in order to receive it. But it doesn't happen overnight. It is a process. And in a society where we are wanting more quick fixes, more easy solutions, it can be quite repelling. And not a lot of people will go on this journey of healing anxious attachment or healing trauma, because it is difficult. And just the fact that you are here listening to this episode, watching this video, you're already there. You're already saying to yourself, yes, I am ready. I am ready to take this next step. I am ready to commit to myself. I am ready to journey. And I know it's not going to be perfect. And I know I'm going to stumble. And I know that I'm going to be faced with challenges, but I'm going to keep getting back up because I'm choosing to. And this is the process, is just like when a baby learns to walk, the baby doesn't fall down and then give up and like, I can't do it. Like, no, the baby gets back up and it tries again and it keeps moving forward, little step by little step. So it is the subtle shifts, the small movements that really matter the most. We're all looking for these big, massive breakthroughs to transform overnight. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Definitely can. But the small, subtle shifts is what makes the difference, because that's what's going to be sustainable as well. If we are going to have all these big, crazy breakthroughs all the time, we're going to completely overwhelm ourselves, overwhelm our systems, and it's going to put us in a state of shutdown because it's too much too soon. The subtle shifts are the things that are going to start to formulate our lives into the lives that we want to live, is starting to shift and transform your identity into the person that you want to be. And you may not even realize this is happening. Another reason why you need to track your progress, because when the subtle shifts are happening, we don't even notice them. So, straight off the bat, make sure you do that. Track your progress in anything that you're doing in your healing journey. So I want to set the tone right here, right now, that we are going to be patient with ourselves, that we are going to embrace and even enjoy this journey that we are on, this healing experience, rather than wishing that we were at that destination already. It's a little bit like any kind of physical goal that we might have, whether it's building muscle or losing weight. It's not a one and done job. We don't just go to the gym or go to a Slimming World meetup and that one time then we get our results, then we have our muscle, we have our weight loss goal. No, we need to be consistently showing up to those meetings, to the gym, in order to build muscle, in order to chip away at that weight. It's the same with our mental health. We need to keep showing up in a consistent manner in order to reprogram those beliefs or heal those wounds or connect to our inner child, whatever your goal is, whatever your focus is on this healing journey. It is a lifestyle change. It is a commitment, consistency, challenge. Building that mental strength and resilience. It takes time and also a willingness to get uncomfortable. When you're lifting weights at the gym, if it's too comfortable and too easy, your trainer's going to be like, go heavier because that's what's going to build muscle. Same in mental health. Go heavier, go deeper, be more willing to get uncomfortable because that's what's going to get you results. All right, I know that we are well on our way here, but let's start diving into these 5 steps individually. And the first one is something that I really have touched upon already, and that is healing isn't comfortable. Feeling uncomfortable is actually a sign of progress because let's be real with each other here right now. You are learning a completely new way of being. Do you know how profound that is? This is no small feat. This is not something that you have done before in the past. You are completely learning how to be in relationships in a new way, how to operate in your lives in a brand new way. It's like learning a new language, something you've never spoke before. And along the way, you are going to be triggered. You're going to feel called out. And you are going to ride that emotional roller coaster. And through it, all of this, your brain, your inner critic, your ego is going to be screaming at you, telling you to stop. What are you doing? This is not good. This is not comfortable. This doesn't feel familiar. We need to go back to what feels familiar because our brain has made the association that what feels familiar feels safe. And this is why we find ourselves getting trapped into anxious avoidant relationships because it feels familiar. It's our comfort zone. So we're dealing with all of these voices in our minds as well, making us doubt ourselves, making us doubt our progress. I see this all the time with my clients where when they start to do the work, they'll start to notice where they're tripping and where the obstacles are because we do have this negative bias where we don't tend to track our progress, the small wins, but instead we hyper focus on all the ways we went wrong, all the ways we weren't perfect, and the challenges that we came up against. And when we hyper fixate on those things, we start to think that we're taking 10 steps backwards. When I promise you, you are leaping forward in this moment. This is a very good sign that you are on your way, you're on the right path. But my love, your brain is protecting you right now. It doesn't want you to address those patterns of self-abandonment and those ingrained fears of unworthiness and past feelings of potential rejection. It doesn't want you to go there. It's trying to protect you from it. It wants you to push it back down, give up, go move on to something else, hope that things will just work themselves out. And it is your job to fight it with your emotional resilience, with your commitment, with your why. Why are you even on this journey? Why are you here? Keep coming back to that as your motivation to keep moving forward when things are tough. And that's why it's really important to have environments, safe people around you, with you on this journey. It is so essential. The right tools, the right strategies, because this is a whole process of unlearning and relearning. You need support. So if you haven't already, get yourself in a community support group. I have a free one on Facebook. You're welcome to join that. Join me on Instagram. That is also a community. Or find people in your local area that you resonate with, or friends that you can trust that you can talk to. Don't do this journey alone. Because I know that feeling of wanting to isolate, of not wanting to share, maybe because you're feeling a lot of shame around your past behavior or the fact that you are feeling so anxious, a powerhouse woman like you feeling anxious over someone's son who's not even showing up and doing the bare minimum. What are people going to think? We're always thinking about what other people are going to think and the judgments that they make about us. And that's where the work is as well. Being able to override that fear of judgment, being able to override that fear of vulnerability vulnerability and see it as a strength. That the moment you start to share your experiences, your story, even in a public arena like my Instagram, like I shared my story about losing my baby, the vulnerability, the rawness, oof, it wasn't comfortable. But my gosh, like it was able to shine a light. It was able to give space for people to share their experiences, what they were going through, and give them permission to be vulnerable with themselves and you as well. And that's what formulates connection. That's when you start to feel very supported in life. And we go through it together because we are built for connection. We are wired for that as human beings. Number two, there's no such thing as a secure attachment finish line. We have this illusion that becoming secure is a destination. And I know a lot of people in the coaching industry and therapy kind of romanticize and formulate this elusiveness of becoming secure. I'm guilty of that as well. I'm raising my hand and admitting that we do formulate our messaging and marketing to becoming secure being the goal, the end destination. And it is, but it is a work in progress. Just like weight loss, that's the goal, right? But once you reach that destination, doesn't necessarily mean then you can fall back into your old eating habits, patterns, because you're just going to unravel all of that work. The same with healing attachment trauma. This is a lifestyle change, a lifestyle commitment that you are going to keep showing up and doing these practices and habits and can be in a completely different way of being secure. That is an identity. That isn't something really tangible that you can hold in your hand. It is an embodiment of yourself. And yeah, you'll have things as a result, like a relationship, a partner, career progression, whatever it is that your goal is in becoming secure. That will happen for you in your life, but it starts with the embodiment of who you are and the consistent embodiment of being secure. So there's no single moment of arrival. I think a lot of myself included, a lot of my clients expect to just wake up and feel secure. But it is that gradual progress, repeatedly choosing new ways of responding to your triggers over and over again, and not expecting perfection, doing this over and over until it becomes the default. This is a little bit like learning a new language, a new skill. So the different stages of learning is when we start with unconscious incompetency. We're not even aware that this is an issue, a problem. A lot of people are operating in this space. And then you move into stage two, which is conscious incompetency, meaning you are aware that you have attachment trauma patterns, attachment style that is impacting the way you show up in your relationship, but you don't know what to do about it. A lot of people are here as well. Maybe you are, and that's why you're here. And then we get to stage three, which is actually the hardest, and that is conscious competency. And what this means is now you are aware of the patterns, of the behaviors, of the wounds, and you are competent in the strategies and the tools and the practices that you need to implement in order to achieve your goal of becoming secure. This is where a lot of people trip up, give up, and move back into their stage one or stage two, because this is when it requires a lot of conscious effort. It requires a lot of, just like learning a new skill, practice. A lot of practice. We have to go to class, we have to get courses and books and coaching, and we have to practice in our lives speaking this new language, being this new person. And then we move into stage four, which is unconscious competency. And this is when things start to become autopilot. So, in the example of learning this new language, it could be that when you just start to talk in that language without even having to think about it, it just happens. It's the same with embodying secure attachment. You are going to start to realize that one day you're going to start to respond instead of react. You're going to be able to stay calm when you're having a conflict with your partner. You're going to be able to realize that you have self-soothing tools already integrated into your being when you don't receive that text message back, and instead you're leading with curiosity instead of anxiety. So it's about cultivating those tools, using them consistency rather than expecting this overnight change and complete breakthrough when all of a sudden you're a new being the next morning. Number three, Can be quite a triggering one, but bear with me. Healing might just disrupt your relationships. So, as you start to reshape the way that you're showing up in your relationships and the way that you want to be, you may encounter some resistance from others who are accustomed to the way that you used to be, to your old dynamics. So, for example, if you've got a partner or family members that really benefited from you not having any boundaries and from being in a very people pleasing state, not saying no, and they were able to get all their needs met that way. And now all of a sudden you're starting to set boundaries with these people. Well, actually, no, you can't just come over tonight. You're going to have to let me know. You can't just show up because this is my personal space and my personal time. You start to set these boundaries from a place of wanting to protect the relationship, protect your peace, be able to feel good in your relationships. But that might trigger the other person because now you're doing something different that they're not used to. And they might push back at you. They might be like, don't be so ridiculous. What's happening to you? Why are you changing? Why are you pushing me away? And they'll start to meet this with resistance. They'll start to challenge them. They'll start to confront them with their own wounds of abandonment and rejection and patterns and ways of being that used to feel safe and familiar. Not everybody is going to be on board with these changes that you are trying to implement in your life. And you might find yourself outgrowing those friendships, even romantic relationships. I went through this myself, where I started doing a lot of personal development work on myself in order to change how I was feeling in my relationship. But my partner was not doing that. And I felt like it was very one-sided, that I was trying to do my best to show up differently, to be a better partner, but I wasn't getting that reciprocation. And it's in that moment that we start to realize that we are starting to level up and they're not coming with us. So we have to evaluate what these relationships are in our lives anymore, whether these are relationships we need to let go of, or if we need to change the way that the dynamic is between us. So I know it can be so tempting in these moments where we don't want to rock the boat with our families, with our friends, with our partners. And we may think, no, I don't want to change too much because that means pushing them away. That means them leaving our lives, even. But what's more important here? Holding on to those relationships that are driven by a fear of abandonment and rejection, self-abandoning yourself, not being your authentic self, or deciding to make a commitment to you that the relationship with you, your authenticity, your ability to speak up for yourself, speak your truth, is more important. And it's really vital to remain steadfast in this journey towards being your most authentic, secure self, even if it means facing challenges and difficulty and being uncomfortable with others as they may push back. And what I want to say to wrap this point up is the people that will support your decisions, will support your choices, and support the changes. They'll encourage you to develop these healthier coping mechanisms and ways of being. And the people that are pushing back, like I said, may have benefited in some way and they don't want to see that change for whatever reason. So, this evaluation is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes we need to create space in our lives in order for new connections and new friendships, new relationships to come through. Point number four is that you will still be triggered. This is a misconception that I definitely had, that I thought if I would learn all the self-soothing strategies and understand my nervous system and rewire my beliefs, that I will never be triggered again in my life. And I'm just going to be this cool, calm, and collected person just floating through life. Actually, I was humbled to know that triggers still remain a very much part of your life and they are not a bad thing. How can we change our relationship to the triggers that we experience? I started there. I started to observe that triggers were not meant to completely disconnect me from myself, were not meant to send me in spirals. What they did was bring me information. They allowed me to see parts of myself that still needed my attention, whether there was still some activated wounds and fears that were within me. and where I may be living out of alignment. So if someone said something that I wasn't happy to hear, is it because they are triggering a wound that is activated within me, or are they pointing out something that I am ignoring? I also want to give you an example of a client of mine who her biggest wound was around being stupid because of the childhood experiences she went through. So when her partner would then say, "Don't be stupid," it would put her in this overwhelming full activation of being triggered. And for anyone else that may hear this common term of someone saying, "Don't be stupid," I know for me, I wouldn't be triggered by that. I'd be like, okay, because I don't intrinsically believe that I am stupid. However, my client did have this subconscious belief that she is stupid that was programmed and conditioned within her from being a child. And when she heard that from a partner, all this past pain started to rise to the surface. And the way that we deal with that and fight against that is becoming defensive. Maybe we start attacking that person back. Maybe we start to become completely engulfed with our emotions. I'm going to now break up with this person or no longer hang out with this person because they said that thing. So instead of reacting in this way, we can get curious. Okay, why am I feeling so triggered by this saying, "Don't be stupid"? What's going on underneath that? And this is when we can start to lead with that curiosity. So the real growth in healing anxious attachment is not removing triggers and never being triggered again, but it lies in the ability to respond to our triggers differently. And through healing, we're able to really gain more understanding and awareness and control over our reactions. And we can be more intentional with our responses rather than leading with reactive impulses. Doing this healing work means that they no longer have any hold over you, that they can become an experience that you're observing within yourself over something that is defining you, controlling you, and overwhelming you. And the last one, number 5, is one that you might be surprised to hear, but will resonate on a very deep level. And that is that sometimes you're going to miss your old patterns. I didn't admit this for a while. Of course, to have healthier, safer, more peaceful relationships is better than unhealthy, toxic, emotional roller coaster of a relationship dynamic. But what I did not want to admit back then is that sometimes I would miss the way that I was when I was in my anxious attachment. And what I mean by this is I had moments where I was in my safe, beautiful, secure relationship, and I had a fleeting thought of, will I ever feel those explosive butterflies again? Will I ever feel those intense highs ever again? Because they felt so good. And I felt so good when I was in those highs. And I started to associate this a little bit with being an alcoholic and choosing to go sober, because anxious attachment is a form of love addiction. We get addicted to the cortisol that is in our body when we feel like we're falling in love with someone who feels familiar. And then we start to fantasize and reminisce about how good it was to feel that intensive high when we're in this type of dynamic. And even though we know on a conscious level that it is better this way, that it is better to choose these types of relationships or this type of lifestyle, like this juice over this beer is better for us. But that doesn't stop us from maybe missing what we used to experience and feel. And I want to normalize this. I want to recognize this as a completely normal part of change. And it's okay. Don't shame yourself for it. What matters is if you act upon it, just like an alcoholic. It's okay to have thoughts, and it's okay to miss the way you were or what that pint of beer used to taste like. And maybe we might trick ourselves into thinking, oh, one pint won't hurt. But we need to be strong, mentally strong in that moment. If I was to drink that pint of beer, if I was to go back into that type of dynamic, what are the consequences and what is it going to cost me? You might also observe this in your relationships when you're having conflict. I know for me, conflict was always a very difficult experience to navigate. And making that choice to choose a more secure manner with my partner when we're going through conflict takes effort. And I have to keep reminding myself and keep myself centered and anchored in the things that I'm saying and keeping myself regulated through these moments and leading with understanding and compassion and curiosity. But sometimes I get myself into those spaces where I'm really tempted to just fall back into that old default pattern of becoming defensive and just saying what I like and just saying what I really think about you in this moment, even though I know I'm going to regret it if I do. It can be really tempting to fall back into our old ways, our default patterns. And no, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to regress or relapse or that we're not fully healed or not moving forward. This is a completely normal thing to experience on your journey of healing and choosing. And when you continue to choose growth over regression, over relapsing, that is what's going to really enhance your personal integrity, authenticity, and long-term sustainability when you are embodying that secure attachment within. So they are the 5 things that I've learned on my journey that no one really tells us about what to expect on this healing journey. And I hope that I provided you some insights to support you to manage those expectations. And I want you to remember that healing is not linear. It is layered, it's messy, it's confronting, and sometimes it's incredibly lonely. It demands our patience, our commitment, and compassion during these times. Sometimes when we look on social media, we see the end result, right? We see the happy-go-lucky woman living their dream life with the perfect relationship. And we wonder why we can't get there already because we're like going through the motions. We feel like we've been in a washing machine and spat back out by the universe, and it just feels awful. But that end result is waiting for you too. Come back to your progress. Be present with your process and be careful not to compare yourself to other people and their journeys. Everyone is in their own lane. But the fact that you're here listening to this episode, watching this video, you have made it this far. And I want you to know that you're already showing up and doing the hard work that most people avoid. A lot of people are choosing easy solutions and going back to their default patterns because it's tough, but not you. You're facing your pain. You're choosing to break these cycles instead of repeating them. You're choosing to do something different with your life. So even when it feels slow, frustrating, or like you're going backwards, remember that you're not. You're still healing. You're still moving forward. And the small ways that you will show up for yourself during these times and choose growth over regression with compassion and curiosity and courage, you're becoming that secure woman. So this work, it's sacred. It's slow, it's subtle, but it's sacred. And it's changing your life. So don't forget to start a routine, a ritual, a habit on noting down all the different small ways that you are progressing. And like I said, if you want to join a community where we're taking those small, subtle, powerful shifts into secure attachment, come and join our Secure Girl Summer 7-day free challenge on Instagram, where I walk you through what it looks like to heal, what it looks like to embody secure attachment on a daily basis in small ways, and help you take those small, powerful steps towards safety, self-worth, self-love, secure love, all the things. So we start on June the 2nd, and I really hope that you can make it. So I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. As always, let me know what you took away from this episode. What were those breakthroughs for you as you listened in? And I would also love for you to share it with anyone that you know is also on this healing journey, healing their anxious attachment, and might be facing some obstacles, some struggles right now, and they just really need to hear this raw truth about what it really takes to heal. Until next time, my love, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me on the Relationship Rehab podcast. I hope that this episode has supported you in healing, growing, and evolving out of insecure attachment and unhealthy relationship patterns and into safe, authentic love with yourself and others. If you enjoyed the episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would just take a second to rate and review this podcast. Every rating and review from you guys counts, as it really helps this podcast to grow so it can reach more people who need to hear this content. And don't forget to connect with me on social media. Take a screenshot of this podcast episode, share it on your IG stories, and tag me at the.relationship.rehab with your biggest takeaway from the episode. I really do love reading them. See you back here next week for another episode on the Relationship Rehab podcast.